Hello, everybody. How are you today? Come, put in the comment section. Let me know you are here. Who's here? Who's here? Who's here? Good evening. Hello. Brenda. Wow, big supporter, Brenda. Hi, 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 hi. Anyone else here? Okay, good evening to everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Hope you guys had your dinner already. Hey, Florence. Hi, Priyanka. How are you? Okay, so I also want to say hi to all the viewers who will be watching our replay later on at your own time. Okay, so I guess there's a lot of learning today from the sharing from Clive, our fellow volunteer, who also happens to be the former regional director of Expedia Group in his previous career, right? So now, PsychTalk has always been here to share with you a little bit of what helps us, in our day-to-day life, right? So we have talked about anger, we have talked a little bit about stress, and also these couple of sessions, we also invited some people from the industry. Like in the previous session, we had Dr. Lee Cheng, right? So now we also have another industry practitioner to come and share with us. The whole idea, right, is to give you all some perspective, to hear from people aside from just a few of us, me, Alan, Chong Ming, and gang, right? So that you guys can also learn something from this sharing and try to apply to your life and hopefully to see a positive impact. Okay, so not only do we do the good work to help our community, now this time PsychTalk also want to use this platform to help you. Okay, without further ado, I would like to invite our guest. All right, our guest Clive. Hello, Clive. Say hi to everyone, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. Huge thank you, especially for the special delivery of this T-shirt that came today at about 2 p.m. So really proud to wear the Team Nila colors as well.
Wonderful. So, to everyone who is watching, I mean, all of you must know, right, that Prime Minister Lee has just announced phase 3 to be coming right up in the 28th of December. And what does this mean for everyone? I mean, aside from having larger gatherings, having more capacity in various places like places of worship and shopping malls and whatnot, it is also a signal that we are trying to return back to normal. So today, why we invite Clive is because we want Clive to share with us, from his experience in the industry, what are certain habits that we can definitely form to help us, to put us in a very favorable position to ride the upturn. All right, so without further ado, let's put our hands together. I know we can't hear you, but you can do a virtual clap. All right, to welcome Clive.
Thank you. Awesome. So that was a perfect segue as Singapore comes into its phase 3. So definitely a lot more optimism. A lot more families can meet with the having a limit of 8 as opposed to 5. So things are getting better, and I think it's important to be optimistic. I prepared some slides, but of course, please feel free to write any questions in the comments or just interrupt as well. What I wanted to talk to you today about is two really important things. One is kind of really unlocking that power of habit. And I want to really be talking a lot about habit building and also how to leverage technology to do that. So moving on to my next slide, I really wanted to, first of all, set the scene. I believe that for everyone on the call, probably this is one of the toughest periods that we're going to go through in our lifetime. I think if we rewind back a year, never would we have expected such a tough 2020. Pandemic raging across the world, infections, deaths, border closures, economies, not doing so well. So really, really tough period of time. I think it's during these times that people tend to take a step back, reflect, and think, how do we acquire the skills needed to move forward? So how do we build resilience? How do we build habits that are going to take us into a world that is going to look very different to the one that we're in today? So a lot of people are talking about the new normal. I like to call it the next normal because, in a sense, every year that goes past, every decade that goes past, we are doing new stuff. Technology is changing, and the pace of change is increasing. So we are, I think, at a time when we've really seen times being polarized as well. So really, really tough times. I wanted to share some post-COVID trends with you, and this is taken from the Visual Capitalist website, which is a really, really good website. They also have a good Instagram page with some, great charts. So 5 trends. One is screen life definitely is taking hold of us much more than it did before. From 2008 till 2018, in 10 years, screen time on our mobile devices has increased 12 times. And I think if we had to measure the impact that that's had on 2020 versus other years, we would see that 2020 has seen people work from home, engage through colleagues through a screen rather than through a face-to-face interaction, spend more time on Netflix, watching some exciting shows like The Queen's Gambit and Money Heist. Guilty. And we're doing a lot of our interactions and work and play through our devices. The second is, and you can see that especially in Singapore, COVID has really exacerbated or increased e-commerce penetration. So whereas before during lockdown we used to go out, we didn't have the option to dine out. Our meals were delivered to us, and that is through food delivery platforms. We managed to order our groceries, our meals, right? So we're seeing that e-commerce has continued to increase its penetration, something it would have done anyway, but COVID has accelerated that. The third is, I think we're kind of seeing a little bit of a polarization in the sense that globalization is also giving way to a little bit of nationalization. So people really looking at the interests of the country first, and maybe trying to reverse some of that interconnectivity of globalization. The fourth, and this is a sad statistic to share, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So this is something which definitely does not give me pleasure to share with you, but it's something that is happening. So this is something for us to think about as we come into the next decades. How are we going to distribute wealth in a fairer way? The fifth one is something that I already mentioned before. Remote working, or at least in part, is going to be here to stay. I think this is probably the largest work from home experiment that we've seen in the last years, and up to a certain extent, or up to a larger extent, it has worked. That doesn't mean that face-to-face interactions or going into the office is going to cease, but I do see remote working in certain industries, probably more than others, to remain. And what that means is people are moving away from the larger cities and migrating into other areas. So if you take, for instance, places like the US, people are moving out from New York and Manhattan into less expensive areas because they are working from home and they don't have to commute into a physical office. So safe to say, these are trends that mean that the world is going to look very different in the next 10 years than it's done so far. DPM Heng said this during the Fortitude budget. He said, COVID-19 has done what many CEOs and CTOs, or chief executive officers and chief technology officers, found hard to do, which is accelerate digitalization. And in fact, a McKinsey study has shown the equivalent of 5 years of consumer and business digital adoption in just 8 weeks. This was in May, so from that kind of period of March to May, 5 years worth of digital adoption. In the space of literally a couple of weeks. The Google Readiness Study that was published in 2020 spoke about 10 years of change in fewer than 10 months. So the pace of change is increasing wildly, and that of course has an impact on the workforce, on the economy, and just on how things are going to move going forward. So why all of this? I just wanted to set the scene. So let's start to look at, so what does that mean for us, right? Clearly, with economies changing, the kind of jobs that are going to be available moving forward are going to be very different to the jobs that are currently available, right? So if there are people on this call who are changing careers, maybe have been laid off from their job, maybe they are considering a career change, this is a good time to kind of take a step back and think, okay, how do I structure myself so that I can put the change in place that is needed to succeed in the next 10 years? So we need to understand change is coming, and it's going to come anyway. The challenge for us is, do we take charge of the change and ride the wave, or do we let change take us with the wave and carry us, right? So we have to try and think of how we can be in control. So first, I'm going to talk about a good framework on how to set personal goals. Before I do that, I wanted to talk about something that I'm calling the highlight reel paradox. For people who love football like I do, we just love going onto YouTube and looking at highlights, right? When a football game is played, I'm a Liverpool supporter, by the way. We go on YouTube and we watch the highlights. Those are the best parts of the game. Or we might go on a video that shows the best goals of 2020, right? Again, it's a highlight reel. And I think as a society, we've been conditioned to observe that moment of brilliance, or really kind of focusing too much on that highlight reel, on something that has really delighted us, without understanding that to get to that highlight reel, there's a lot of hard work that goes into building a particular skill, such as playing football. So what people might say when they log on to these videos is, so talented, or lucky to have a left foot like that, or this one very rich, huh? What people don't say is, what are the eating habits or the training habits that footballer puts in place? We don't show a video of someone training every day, or running with the ball 10 or 15 times, or shooting at goal 15 or 20 times. Maybe people don't ask, what are the daily sacrifices that are made in order for that player to be that good? Or how long has he been dedicated to football? And the reason I'm saying this is, I think this is a very good context to set when people want to improve. And this slide, if there's anything that you take away from this presentation today, or from this live stream, is this slide. A lot of people talk about success as something exceptional, but ultimately success is a few simple disciplines which are practiced every day, right? So the right habits every day, compounded over time, lead to success, whilst the wrong habits every day, when repeated every day, lead to failure. Perfect example. If I occasionally eat a hamburger, I'm not going to get fat, right? So I'm going to maintain a healthy lifestyle, and occasionally I go into Shake Shack or into McDonald's, and I'm going to have my hamburger. But if I eat a hamburger or 2 hamburgers every day, chances are that my fitness levels and my health is going to suffer. So taking that, I wanted to start to work with you on what is the OKR methodology, right? Now, OKR is a framework started in, I think, 1992 by a gentleman called John Durr. OKR is nothing more than a framework for how to set goals. And this can apply to business as well as personal. And today we're going to focus, of course, on the personal side. So the OKR methodology speaks about, I will do something as measured by a set of key results. So for instance, if someone says, I want to get into the best shape of my life, I can just imagine that person sitting on the couch and saying, okay, great, I really want to get into shape. Doing that is not enough. if you really want to set a goal that you want to achieve, the objective is good, but then you have to understand, how am I going to measure that particular goal? So how am I going to know that I've achieved the objective? So an example, a good example could be, I will get into the best shape of my life as measured by achieving an ideal weight of 80 kilograms. So you've set the objective, which is the big picture thinking of you really want to get into shape. Then you're saying, if I get to 80 kilograms, I'm going to be in pretty good shape because that's my ideal weight. Yeah. Now, a couple of things. If the measurement that you set is incorrect, it's highly likely that you will not achieve your objective, right? So let's just say that the measurement that I put here, let's say I will get into the best shape of my life if I achieve, let's say, an ideal weight of 90, right? Let's say that the goal is wrong, or that the measure is wrong. I'm going to be measuring something incorrect. Yeah. The second piece is, if I cannot quantify something, so if I cannot measure success clearly, the chances are that you will fail. So if you say, I want to get into the best shape of my life by dropping a few kilograms, a few can mean 2, can mean 5, can mean 8. So if you don't define what that metric is clearly, then it's going to be difficult. Now, of course, this is just the goal, which is the relatively easy part to do. But as we know, strategy is worthless unless execution follows. But I'm going to come on to this later. So again, this is something which is important, and I'm going to kind of break this down in the next slides. Cool, great. So we decided that 80 kilograms is the magic number. What's next? So the next step is the one that many people fail at, which is, what do I need to do to get to 80 kilograms? So how do I define the initiatives or the tasks or the habits that I need to get to 80 kilograms? A couple of examples. I can say, I'm going to exercise for at least 30 minutes 5 times a week. And the second one is, I'm going to remove refined sugar and processed foods from my diet altogether. You can measure them easily. It's something that can work. Yeah. So the above initiatives, if you've identified them correctly, again, if these two examples, so if the initiatives and tasks aren't the correct ones, you won't get to 80 kilograms, and therefore you won't achieve your objective. So if they're identified correctly, this is what you need to do to get to your ideal weight, right? So again, if instead of saying removed refined sugar from processed foods from diet altogether, you might say, I'm going to consume 3 bubble teas instead of 5, you won't see that much movement on the scale. So let's recap the last 2 slides. 1, have an objective in mind. Second, make sure that you have a goal and a specific metric, a specific result that you want to get to that ties into how you want to achieve that objective. The third is, how am I going to get to that result? And maybe on this slide, I really wanted to show you some other areas for you to consider when it comes down to setting personal goals. Health is, of course, one of them, the example that we just gave. Think of things like finances, right? What financial habits do you have? What are your objectives? How do you break them down? It's easy to say, I want to make $1 million Singapore dollars. That's great. Over what period? What do you need to save? What do you need to invest? What financial choices do you have to make? So career-wise, what direction do you want to take your career in? Things like learning, what objectives do you have? If you want to pivot into an industry that, let's say, requires you to have some qualifications, how do you structure yourself so that you can learn? And even some more softer goals around family and friends, around the kind of behavior that you want to generate. These are all great examples of setting personal goals. So let's dive a little bit deeper into learning. Second example. So following the same methodology, let's look at some powerful learning objectives examples. So I can think, okay, I'm sat here in Singapore, I just lost my job, and a lot of my friends are telling me digital marketing is really the space that you want to get into. So I start writing an objective that might look something like this: repivot my career into the digital marketing space in the next 6 months, as measured by, well, pretty obvious, of course, getting a job within the digital marketing side. I might say, fantastic. So that is a great initiative. And then I'm going to list 3 initiatives that I think are going to help me get there. One, I might say, I need to get some kind of certification, and I hear that the Google digital marketing certification is a good one. So I say I want to obtain it within a certain date, and I want to get a grade of 95% plus. Fantastic. Second, I want to contact 5 people in my LinkedIn network to understand what kind of work does a digital marketer do, just to really get some insider information. That's really good. The third, you might say, leverage Singapore government retraining schemes, maybe attend some in-person classes at SMU twice a week with the aim of graduating in 3 months' time. So you can see that you've built a bridge from, I've got a dream, I've got a goal, what do I need to do to get there, and then how do I break it down? But now comes the hard part. So how do you stay on track? So you said, I will exercise for 30 minutes per day, minimum 5 days a week. The initiative is great, but how do you know that you're going to do that? Or how do you keep yourself honest that you're going to do that? You also said, I'm going to complete that SMU course for digital marketing within 3 months. So how do you know that you're on track? And most importantly is, what habits do you need to put in place to be able to achieve that initiative? A bit confusing, right? So let me take you to the next part. And I'm going to stay a little bit longer on this slide. So let's break it down into layers. Firstly is you got your objective and your key result. We spoke about that earlier, right? Get into the best shape of your life as measured by a body weight of 80 kilograms. Great. Again, by the way, 80 kilograms is very subjective depending on height and age. So this number is going to look very different for very different people. But the question that's asked in white there is, what is my objective? So what do I want to achieve, right? So that is what the objective and key result is answering. The second two, which are the initiative and the habit, are interchangeable in the sense that the initiative is a larger scale initiative that you need to take, which is, if I'm going to get into shape, exercise has to be one of them. Great. You've then quantified that and put a goal against it. You've said 30 minutes, 5 days a week. A habit is something that helps you achieve the initiative. So what habits do you have every day that can help you get to your initiative? So in these two levels, you're asking yourself, what do I need to do to achieve to actually achieve it, to get it done. Yeah. But then what you need to do is you need to do 2 things. If you're going to exercise for 30 minutes, 5 days per week, you need to make sure that you find time for that. And finding time means calendar blocking. So the question that you ask yourself when it comes down to the reminder or the calendar is, did I block some time for this? When should I exercise? Am I a morning person? Do I have more time in the morning? Is it an evening thing? And then to put that as a recurring calendar appointment, or to make sure that it's there. You set some time aside to be able to do that. And then another really interesting one is tracking. So tracking is, how do I know I did this? So you go for your run, and you might even have, very simple, a nice calendar on the wall with X's. And you say, today I went for my exercise. So you take X, right? Again, sometimes it's not just about technology. There are some fantastic tools out there to keep you honest on objectives and key results. But sometimes the best things that can work are pen and paper. So I'll talk a little bit about the technology later, but this philosophy can be done completely offline as well. Next example, just to get something different. Again, I sit down and I think I want to repivot my career into a different industry. In this case, it's digital marketing within 6 months. And you think there's two things that I have to do. One of them would be to attend this SMU course twice per week and achieve a grade of B and above, right? But how do I do that? So one, I need to put these lessons in my calendar. B, I have to also block some time to study, to revise, to research, right? So you need to keep yourself honest on, am I making progress? So the tracking part, and I'll come on to talk about tracking and self-reflection later, and that calendar blocking is really, really important. So, coming now to the technology piece. Now, technology, of course, is here to help us. I'm going to share some of my tools that I use. So I use Google Forms to do what I like to call self-reflection and tracking. Now, self-reflection is nothing more than asking yourself a set of questions. Now, imagine if I have a number of personal goals. So I've got a number of objectives, I've got a number of initiatives, and I've got a number of tasks. I need to ask myself maybe 10 or 15 questions. Did I meditate today? Did I drink enough water today? Did I write in my gratitude journal today? You know, these are all examples of things that you might ask yourself that are linked to your personal goals. For me, for instance, I'm trying to learn Mandarin. So the question I ask myself is, did I learn a new Mandarin character today? Read, write, and speak. Right? I can tell you it's hard, but I'm trying. So that self-reflection, which I like to do at the end of the day, tells you, did I set out what I wanted to do? Am I on track with my personal goals? Because if that slide, the first slide that I showed you, the one with the goldfish bowl, talks about if you do the basics every day and they're linked correctly to the objective, you're going to be successful. So you then let time compound that greatness, right? Then I need to make sure that I'm ticking these things off every day. And Google Forms for me works really well in terms of I actually track the responses by filling in a form every single day. Yeah, and again, you can go as deep as you like. You can put this on on your journal in writing. There's many tools that you can use. I find Google Forms is good because then you can go back on the answers and kind of pull some data from there. Some more tools. Yes, all of them are free. So I like to use for what I like to call that task and initiative management. So you've got your objective, initiative, task. I use a tool called Asana, which is free, by the way. So they've got, of course, their paid versions for businesses and for enterprise. But I use the free version, which is more than enough to manage my personal goals. And if you look to the right, there's a screenshot of my goal. So, and again, this is a live example. So I said, okay, I would love to get to Mandarin HSK 4 level in 4 years. So I've then broken that down and I've said, based on the number of characters that I need to learn, I'm going to try and pass HSK 1 and 2 by December next year. I'll do HSK 3 in 2022. And then the biggest jump, I think, is from HSK 3 to 4 and take 2 years to do that. So I've kind of broken down that goal into different initiatives. Now, something that you can't see on this slide is beneath that there is, what am I doing every day? Because if I need to learn 300 characters and I'm saying I have to do something every day, then my habit becomes learn 1 or 2 Mandarin characters per day. Yeah. So we've gone from goal to sub-goal or initiative and then task or habit. So what do I have to do every day to get to pass HSK 1 and 2? Yeah. So Asana is a fantastic tool. I can recommend it. Again, there's millions of other tools. You can do this offline as well, but Asana is free, and I would recommend the usage. For anyone that needs some help on Google Forms or Asana, get in touch with Team Nila, and I'll be very happy to share some more tips on a one-on-one basis. Google Reminders. This again is my a snapshot of my calendar. So reminders are very interesting because reminders are nudges on what to do. So for instance, you can see here to the left that I have exercise from 2 till 3, right? That's something that I block my calendar for because that is part of one of my personal goals linked to my health and fitness. But you can also see in orange, and again, Google Calendar is free, Gmail is free. For instance, I want a reminder that 8:30 in the morning, I want to do 10 minutes of meditation. So at 8:30, that reminder comes up and says, Clive, time for meditation. Yeah, fantastic. So that tells me that nudges me towards a very good behavior. You can see, for instance, here I have read nonfiction. So spend 15-20 minutes reading something that is, let's say, a book that is nonfiction. I'm currently reading The Coaching Habit and Atomic Habits by James Clear, which I'll come on to talk about in a second. So the message that I have for you is your to-do list without your calendar is not powerful. But if you take your to-do list and distribute it in your calendar, then that means that you are committing to doing something because you're putting it in your calendar. Some of you may want to research calendar blocking, which is also, and maybe want to go into a bit more detail as to how calendar blocking works. Final piece, this is very important. If you want to be awesome, be better. But focus on building lasting habits. And my experience in this, my personal experience is it's easier than you think. So the next slide is from a gentleman called James Clear. And James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits, which I highly, highly recommend, especially in these uncertain times. The chart to the left is really interesting because James Clear talks about the power of tiny, consistent gains. And he uses a mathematical formula. So if you take 1.01 and then you raise that to the power of 365, which is 365 days in a year, and that means you're getting 1% better every day, the result comes out at 37.78. But then imagine you get worse every day. Imagine if you do, of course, mathematically you can't use 1 because 1 to the power of 365 remains 1. So take 0.99 and then multiply that by, or raise that to the power of 365, you end up with 0.03. So the difference between the 1.01 and the 0.99 is negligible. So you've got a 1% gain or 1% decline. But when you raise that to the power of 365, you can see how far apart the 37.78 and the 0.03 are. So back to my Mandarin learning is, if I do nothing, I never learn the language. But if I say I'm going to learn how to read, write, and speak 1 Mandarin character per day, by the time the year is up, I'm at 365 characters. I think that's close to HSK 1. I've done nothing special, but all I've done is maintain a habit, right? So that's something for you to take away, is change doesn't go from not reading anything and trying to read 2 books a week. Change happens when you say, I want to read more. Okay, great. I'll start by reading 2 pages every day because it's doable, it's achievable. The following week, you'll probably go to reading 3 pages per day. And then the week after could be 10 pages per day. So you're slowly getting better at building that habit. And of course, there's a whole way and a whole science of how to do that, which we might cover in a different session. The second chart, your top right, talks about breaking big habits down. So again, in the same way that we kind of broke down, or that I broke down the HSK1 into learn 1 Mandarin character per day, right? So if something is big, it looks like a big initiative, try and break it down into smaller habits, things that are digestible. And again, changing quickly. So again, maybe using a fitness analogy, going to the gym once and doing a fantastic workout, spending 2 hours there, really being proud of that workout, but just doing one every 2 months is not going to help. But if you do 10 minutes every day, running, walking, I can guarantee that that second person that keeps doing those 10 minutes every day is going to be much fitter in the longer run than the first person. And the chart or the calendar on the top, on the bottom right-hand side, never miss twice. So there's going to be days where you're busy, you don't have the motivation, you might not feel like exercising, your legs might be a bit sore. I might be sick and tired of trying to write a Mandarin character with 8 strokes or 9 strokes. So I might miss one day, right? Never miss 2, because then you start to break that habit. If it's a good habit, you don't want to break it. If it's a bad habit, because this can work the other way around, you want to break that in a consistent fashion. So again, when we talk about habits, I think this is something that we can delve much deeper into and into how to build good habits, but that's probably going to be for a different session. So I'm kind of done with my presentation. So I'm going to remove myself or remove the presentation from the screen, and maybe, I'm not sure if I hand over to the moderator or see if there's any questions for me. You might be on mute.
So guys, if you got any questions you want to ask Clive, please put it into the comments section. While waiting for our viewers to ask a question, maybe I'll ask a question first. So I think one of the biggest challenges, right, for people in terms of habits building is that they want to see tangible results quickly. And then when they don't see that result, for example, right? So if let's say today we use the gym analogy where I go and do lots of bicep curls, I want to see my arms get really huge in one session. And if I don't see it, to me, it doesn't work, and I probably won't continue. So how would you, what are your thoughts on this to help people, put things into perspective when it comes to improvement?
Fantastic question. So I'm going to answer 2 ways. The first is you are bombarded with advertisements telling you do one gym session and you will look like a bodybuilder, or a lot of promises and more like that. I can tell you that when you see something like that, be highly skeptical, because it is impossible. I think anyone with common sense would take a step back and think, again, back to the football analogy, right? You need to keep training every day to reach a certain level. So the amount of effort and energy that you have to put in over the course of time to get to a certain level is important. But maybe the second way to answer this is, and actually in the book that I recommended by James Clear called Atomic Habits, there's one chapter where an example is mentioned. So think of a block of ice in a room, and you walk into this room and you say, okay, how am I going to melt the ice? So you try and take the temperature from the room from 22 to 23, then to 24, then to 25, and nothing is happening. Keep going until you get to 29, and then suddenly, when you take the temperature up to 30, you start to see the ice melting. The analogy there is, it's not that 1 degree from the 29 to the 30 that has melted the ice, but all the work that you've done from taking the temperature up from 22 to 30. So when you're trying to build a habit, for the first few weeks, you may not see any tangible results, but there's going, and that's called, I think James Clear calls it the valley of disappointment, where a lot of people give up, because back to your point, I've gone to the gym twice, but I'm gonna where are the guns, right? But you can't do that, right? And they have to keep going for, at least for a couple of months to see some tangible results. So people give up because they say, oh yeah, I tried this, but it didn't work. So I always say, if you bear within that valley of disappointment or perceived disappointment, because there's a lot of good work being done, it's just that the results are invisible and tangible, what then happens is you start to see a steep curve coming up. And for those people who like fitness or have undergone physical transformation, they will tell you that maybe the first few weeks they didn't see any change. But then that change came quite suddenly, right? And that was all the hard work that they did, but they just didn't give up. So, you know, maybe another example there is finances. The greatest financial investments are the ones that compound with time. So, you know, time is really an excellent compounder of money, of interest. So, of course, if you pluck your investment after 5 years instead of leaving it for 30 years, the sum that you get at the end is so different. So this is just a couple of things that kind of can help people. Just stick with it.
Definitely, I think you raised several good points, right? That we need to let time slowly work its way in the kind of habit building, habit formation that we are trying to go for. In the start, you know, you may not see the results that you are asking for, but when the results do come, they can actually be quite surprising. So I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think for volunteers, you know, from Team Nila perspective, right? Maybe something that we all can think about right now is, what do you want to learn? Whether you want to contribute back to the community, what is the better way to do so? How do you think it is the better way to do so? Then you list out all this information so that, you know, from here, from VEP's standpoint, we are able to provide you with the resources to help you to learn so that you can contribute back to the community better, right? And then all these tools that, oh wow, that's an interesting question. But let me first. Okay, so all the tools that Clive have shared with you is actually a way for you to do this kind of what we call the positive reinforcement, right? When you use Asana, when you use Google Reminders, basically you're trying to ask yourself, you're trying to commit yourself to a certain pattern. And then when you do this pattern, right, you want to have a way to put a check mark on it to give yourself that assurance that, okay, today I've already achieved my target. Let's move on to the next day. Slowly, you put it into a game, right? Then you also have this, you will feel it within yourself like, well, you know what, tomorrow I want to achieve the same check mark again. I want to achieve the same check mark one more time, you know, and then slowly, before you know it, you have already formed a habit. So now let's address this question from Ems. Okay, so Ems is it too late for me to build a habit? Clive, your answer?
No, never. And I think that this is something that, and I want to make sure that this doesn't come across as fluffy or I think anyone, anytime can build a habit, as long as you have the right framework, which is you've got the right objective, you have realistic goals, and you break them down to the point where you're doing something every day, you will be surprised at what you can achieve. And you've heard this before. There's people that in their 40s have started to learn a language and mastered it. People in their 50s that have gone vegan and are running, Ironman, challenges or doing multiple marathons. So it's never too late to do well. And it's never too late to put good habits in there. And again, think of the definition of a habit is something that your brain does subconsciously without thinking. A habit is brushing your teeth. So you wake up in the morning without thinking, you brush your teeth. It's an automatic. It's an automatic thing. It happens on the subconscious. If you build now, imagine taking that habit of brushing your teeth, and someone might say the first habit that I have is to meditate for 10 minutes, and you do that every day. That becomes a habit. Like you wake up and your brain tells you, I've woken up, therefore I need to meditate. It's amazing what you can achieve if you do that for 30 days, 60 days, 200 days. So to anyone listening, start small, build up. So like for instance, I'm going to take my journey. I started off maybe 6 months ago. I had a hard time doing one good push-up. Honestly. And I started with 1. I built up to 2. Then I did 5. And things, and back to the value of disappointment. You keep going. You say, I'm going to do my 10 every day, 15 every day. And now it's really easy. And I can do raised ones, and I can do, the Spider-Man ones. And you feel proud of yourself, because if I rewind back to how I was 6 months, I could not do 1. So the one that I was doing was the one, the wall push-up, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Hopefully this has encouraged a couple of people to start doing push-ups as well.
That's great. Especially now, right? So many people like tag each other to go and do that push-up challenge.
Yeah.
This is a good skill to have. So yes, back to the point, right? Do it. Build that habit until it becomes an automatic response, right? That if you don't do it, your whole body feels uncomfortable. So think of your morning coffee, right? Think of like what Clive mentioned, brushing your teeth. Try lah. Don't drink coffee. Don't brush your teeth. How do you feel the entire day? Weird, right? So same thing, make all these good habits part of your day-to-day life, such that if you don't do it that day, it really feels very awkward for yourself. And that's when you know you successfully made it into a habit, right? Be it an active lifestyle, be it a learning lifestyle, any of these good stuff, you can definitely make it into a habit and do it frequently. Yeah, if there's any more questions, feel free to send them to us, and then we can get Clive to make a video at his own home to address those individual questions. I think that's that's okay for you, right, Clive?
Yeah, and even if people want to reach out, and maybe I'm very happy to kind of maybe take 5-10 minutes and walk them through, maybe trying to help them structure that objective or that key result. I'm happy to get involved. So. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your contribution, right? So guys, you see, sometimes it's not about going to attend those expensive $200-300 seminar to learn something. Actually, we do have lots of volunteers within our midst who have very very deep life experiences that they are very willing to share, very willing to guide you along this journey to achieve some positive impact in your life lah. So look around, have a chat with each other, and who knows, you might find somebody who's going to be your accountability partner, somebody who really pushes you to complete your targets that day, right? Then oh wow, okay. Yeah, so regardless, all the volunteers within our midst, everybody got their own strengths, everybody got their own special skills. So all we need to do is just to chit chat with them to find out these gems, and then we can showcase to everybody and learn from each other. Okay, yeah. And Ems just put up another comment.
So
my is,
Let me. I'm going to try and answer this, and of course I'm going to try and be as general as I can, because there's clearly a specific situation there. But if today, so let's say for instance, and there are people like that, right, who are listening in and thinking, I've not really looked at my finances over the last 5 years. So what you do is you start very small and saying, what am I spending my money on? Where can I make the cuts? How can I increase my income? What financial decisions do I need to take? And even for the people that, again, if you compound small numbers, you can do very well over the medium and the longer term. So never give up in the sense of, again, everyone has different commitments, but if you have good financial habits, right? And again, seek some. So, for instance, I'm sure that there's people within someone's network that might know someone working in a bank, or just people who have that knowledge. Just put a couple of very quick habits in place. Even if it's investing $100 every month, it's amazing what that can do if invested correctly. So, I always say that habits. So I'm of course not professing to have the silver bullet to everyone's problems, but no matter where you are, you wake up one morning and you say, I'm going to put these 3 habits in place. You stick at them. I can guarantee that you will make positive change.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the very inspiring talk, and actually very actionable as well. So volunteers, all of you who are watching, I really, really, really encourage you to, take this time since it's a evening time, you already finished your dinner, getting ready to wind down, just do maybe a 10-15 minute reflection to see what are some habits you want to start building today. Call somebody from your care network, ask them whether they can be your accountability partner to someone to get motivate you to hit those targets on a daily basis, or go and set up your Asana account and then put those things in the checklist, all the tasks in the checklist right now. Okay, and if you have any success you want to share with us, maybe 3-4 weeks down the road, please do. Okay, we'll be more than happy to hear from you, and I'm sure Clive will be really proud of you for whatever you have achieved during that time.
For sure. And thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and I will see you again at the next episode of PsychTalk. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Happy phase 3 to everyone. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.